8 marriages, 7 husbands. Yet that was only the surface of the storm known as Elizabeth Taylor, a woman who made both Hollywood and Washington follow her every move. From a child prodigy of the silver screen to the most powerful beauty icon of the 20th century, she didn't just conquer cinema. She dominated front pages with her shocking love affairs. With a private life shrouded in secrecy, never-before-seen photos, and relationships so controversial they even drew statements from the Vatican, just how wild was she really? Join us as we uncover the truth in this video. Elizabeth Taylor was born in 1932 in Hampstead, England, to American parents Sarah and Frances Taylor. Her father was a successful art dealer, while her mother was a former stage actress with several Broadway credits. Elizabeth was an intelligent and curious child, always searching for her own place in the world. She often spent her time reading books, playing with dolls, and indulging her imagination, staging little performances for her family and dreaming of becoming a movie star one day. But life was not always easy for Elizabeth. At just 9 years old, she was already appearing regularly in tabloid headlines after signing a contract with Universal Pictures and stepping into the spotlight as if she had been born for it. Boys were infatuated with her, and girls wanted to imitate everything she did. By the time she entered her teenage years, she had become a Hollywood icon, and many noticed that she seemed far more mature than her age. Yet no one truly knew what Elizabeth was like in real life until Darwin Porter and Danforth Prince released their explosive book about her. The book quickly became a public sensation because of its allegedly shocking details. Porter claimed he had recorded Elizabeth's confessions during a dinner at playwright Tennessee Williams' home, along with testimony from people closest to her, including assistant Dick Hanley and longtime friend Roddy McDowell. The stories were so startling that many readers dismissed them as pure imagination. According to the authors, Elizabeth's romantic troubles may have been set in motion even before she was born. From the opening pages, the biography raises doubts about her true paternity. Was Frances Taylor, the American art dealer, really her father, or was it Victor Cazalet, a British politician so close to the Taylor family that rumors inevitably followed? Although no concrete evidence was ever presented, the question cast a shadow of mystery over the young actress's childhood. Even after the family moved to Los Angeles to escape World War II, Cazalet's influence was said to linger. But the most shocking revelations concerned Elizabeth herself at a very young age. The book alleges that at 12, she experienced an inappropriate situation with John Derek, who would later become a well-known actor and director. Soon afterward, she was reportedly romantically involved with actor Peter Lawford during a limousine ride. These claims sparked intense controversy due to both their sensitive nature and the lack of verifiable proof. Sources cited by the authors also claimed that Elizabeth handled these experiences with an almost detached attitude, as if they were scenes from a film rather than real life. Even as a teenager, she was said to be aware of her early physical development and often drawn to older men. At just 15, she reportedly developed an interest in Ronald Reagan, then a popular actor who would later become President of the United States. According to the story, Elizabeth sought him out in his hotel room, hoping to secure acting opportunities. Her boldness allegedly left Reagan uncomfortable, with Elizabeth taking control of the encounter. While the accuracy of this account remains disputed, it contributed to the public image of Elizabeth as both alluring and dangerous in her youth. As Elizabeth entered adulthood, the media attention surrounding her grew increasingly intense. Her private life became fertile ground for rumors, while Hollywood sought both to exploit and control her image. MGM worried that the young star's reputation might be damaged, so the studio attempted to manufacture a wholesome romance between her and football hero Glenn Davis. The relationship was heavily promoted as a fairy tale love story, even rumored to culminate in marriage once Davis returned from the Korean War. But the wedding never happened, and the public began to question how real the romance had ever been. Despite the studio's efforts, Elizabeth suddenly announced her engagement to William Pauley Jr., the son of a U.S. ambassador, causing MGM's publicity plans to collapse. Even more shocking was that around the same time, the eccentric billionaire Howard Hughes also proposed marriage and reportedly offered her parents a large sum of money to seal the deal. Elizabeth ultimately rejected Hughes and chose William, even while she was still rumored to be involved with Glenn. Having grown up under strict rules and heavy control from MGM, she believed that early marriage would grant her freedom and a sense of identity. But she was not ready. At just 18, she married Conrad Nicky Hilton Jr., heir to the Hilton Hotel empire. MGM turned the wedding into a grand spectacle, complete with cameras, celebrities, and carefully staged smiles. Yet during the honeymoon, things quickly deteriorated. According to the controversial biography, Elizabeth allegedly had secret affairs while traveling, one with Prince Rainier of Monaco, then preparing to marry Grace Kelly, and another with married actor Tony Curtis. When Elizabeth returned from her first wedding, her romantic dreams soon shattered against a cold and frightening reality. Her new husband, Nicky Hilton, was not the charming prince the press had celebrated, but a man consumed by alcohol, rage, and cruel indifference. Evenings that should have been filled with laughter were replaced by the sound of breaking glass and bitter words. Still very young, Elizabeth gradually realized she had entered a gilded cage with no escape. A violent argument ended in tragedy when she suffered a miscarriage, a devastating blow not only physically, but emotionally as well. Just 8 months after the wedding, she filed for divorce, formally ending her first marriage with allegations of mental cruelty. But Elizabeth did not remain alone for long. In 1952, she married British actor Michael Wilding, a man more than 20 years her senior, calm and seemingly capable of providing the stability she longed for after an emotional storm. The wedding was held quietly at Caxton Hall in London, far from flashing cameras and public scrutiny. However, their relationship was not a fairy tale born from love at first sight. It had actually begun years earlier when they met on the set of The Conspirator, when Elizabeth was only 17. At the time, the age gap did not appear to deter Wilding, and the relationship remained discreet until they officially became husband and wife. Elizabeth hoped Wilding's maturity would give her a sense of security, a man who would not be swept up in reckless passions like Nicky. In contrast, Wilding seemed to see in her a chance to rekindle his own fading stardom. Elizabeth's fame was exploding while his career had begun to stall. They had 2 sons before she turned 23, but domestic happiness could not bridge the growing distance between them. Rather than reviving his career, Wilding slipped further into obscurity, seemingly losing the will to change. In 1955, scandal erupted when the tabloid magazine Confidential published shocking allegations that Wilding hosted wild, debauched parties in their own home. Surprisingly, he offered little defense of his reputation, as if he knew the damage was beyond repair. The controversy did not end there. Rumors of his alleged affair with actor Stuart Granger further strained the marriage. Ironically, Elizabeth herself no longer seemed invested, as her heart had turned toward Frank Sinatra. She reportedly became so infatuated with the singer that she considered forcing him into marriage by claiming she was pregnant. Sinatra, interested only in casual affairs, bluntly said he was not ready to settle down and arranged for her to terminate the pregnancy. The marriage to Wilding ultimately collapsed when they announced their separation in the summer of 1956, finalizing their divorce shortly thereafter. Almost immediately, Elizabeth entered her third marriage with producer Mike Todd, whom she met while she was 3 months pregnant. They married in Acapulco, Mexico, in early 1957 in a dazzling atmosphere filled with hope. Unlike her previous two husbands, Todd truly loved and cared for her. But fate proved cruel. Less than 2 years later, Todd was killed in a plane crash, leaving Elizabeth completely devastated. She could barely leave her bed for days, sinking into overwhelming grief and an unending sense of loss. During that dark period, longtime friend Paul Newman visited frequently, offering quiet comfort and gentle companionship. Then, suddenly, he stopped. Newman later admitted he realized he was becoming too emotionally involved and feared that such closeness could destroy his own marriage, so he withdrew before it was too late. When Newman no longer appeared, Debbie Reynolds, Elizabeth's close friend, and her husband Eddie Fisher became her new support system. But grief can push people beyond moral boundaries. Before long, Elizabeth and Eddie began a passionate relationship that shocked the world. The public was outraged. The press branded her a homewrecker, and the wholesome image Hollywood had carefully crafted for her collapsed overnight. They married in Las Vegas in 1959. Yet Elizabeth later admitted she was still drowning in grief and had rushed into Eddie's arms simply to escape her pain. As expected, Eddie proved unable to remain faithful, and his drug problems made matters worse. However, this seemed to matter little to Elizabeth. She had grown weary of the cold marriage and was rumored to have begun a secret affair with none other than John F. Kennedy. At the time, Kennedy was campaigning for the presidency and relished being at the center of attention. He frequently socialized with the biggest stars: Frank Sinatra, Marilyn Monroe, and of course, Elizabeth Taylor. With her captivating eyes, wild spirit, and razor-sharp wit, Elizabeth was exactly the kind of woman he admired. The controversial biography claims that one night JFK took Elizabeth for a late swim at Robert Stack's pool, and the evening ended in a heated affair, after which he became completely enthralled with her. He could not stop thinking about her. Elizabeth, for her part, was drawn to his quick intelligence, confident manner, and grand promises to change the world. Over time, they grew increasingly close, extremely close. Kennedy began calling her whenever he was in Los Angeles, and soon invited her to his private bungalow at the Beverly Hills Hotel. Elizabeth reportedly wrote about these encounters in her diary. To her, they felt like sweet escapes from the madness of fame, but to her friends it seemed like much more. They said she glowed whenever JFK appeared, like a love-struck girl eagerly awaiting their next meeting. Elizabeth always insisted their relationship was merely a deep friendship. Not everyone believed that, and certainly not Jackie Kennedy. A source told Radar Online that if Jackie had not intervened, Elizabeth might have become part of Camelot, the president's innermost circle of power and trust. But the First Lady would not allow that to happen. To her, Elizabeth Taylor was not just a movie star, but a potential threat to an already fragile marriage. Around the same time, Elizabeth also shocked friends by revealing she had been entangled in a complicated relationship with two screen legends, Marlon Brando and Montgomery Clift. While the public was still buzzing about her scandalous marriage to Eddie Fisher, an even more explosive chapter was beginning. In 1962, on the set of Cleopatra in Rome, Elizabeth met Richard Burton, a man with a velvet voice but dangerously intense eyes. Both were married, yet the attraction between them was nearly irresistible. Casual touches quickly turned into lingering glances, then into a blazing public affair. When a photographer captured them kissing passionately on a yacht off the coast of Ischia, the world practically exploded. The Vatican condemned the relationship as a sign of moral decadence, while the American press cast Elizabeth as a symbol of sin and scandal. But Elizabeth never lived by other people's rules. She and Burton hurled themselves at each other like two storms, defying public outrage. On March 5, 1964, her divorce from Eddie Fisher was finalized in Mexico. Just 10 days later, she put on a wedding dress again. this time for Richard Burton, in a ceremony both discreet and lavish at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Montreal. Burton not only became her husband, but also a father figure to her children, adopting Liza Todd and helping complete the adoption of Maria, a young girl from Germany. The press could not get enough. Elizabeth and Dick became the hottest couple on the planet. They starred together in 11 films, spent money as if there were no tomorrow, and lived in a whirlwind of passion, jealousy, and scandal. Enormous jewels, private yachts, luxury villas, everything became headline news. Some believed they were the first couple to prove that personal chaos could actually amplify public fascination. But the price was just as devastating. After a decade of love, hatred, reconciliation, and collapse, they divorced in 1974. Then, true to their unpredictable nature, they remarried in Botswana just 1 year later, shocking the world once again. The second marriage proved even shorter, lasting less than a year before ending for good in 1976. Elizabeth never stopped longing for Richard. She once said, "After Richard, the men in my life were just there to hold my coat or open doors. All the men after Richard were simply companions." However, the same could not be said of Richard. According to the book Elizabeth Taylor, There's Nothing Like a Dame by Darwin Porter, Richard Burton allegedly confessed that his mentor Philip Burton introduced him to same-sex relationships. Over time, he was also linked to major figures of the British stage such as Laurence Olivier, John Gielgud, and Noel Coward. After their first wedding, Richard reportedly continued to have affairs, much like Elizabeth's previous partners. The book claims he had a relationship with architect Edward Trelawney, and as usual, Elizabeth was aware, and was said to have had affairs of her own. According to the author, the darkest point of this troubled marriage came one night when Richard, intoxicated, allegedly behaved in a coercive and humiliating way toward Eddie Fisher as a display of twisted dominance, later returning home and boasting about it to Elizabeth. Another story claims Elizabeth once caught Burton and actor Peter Lawford in an intimate situation, but reacted with little visible emotion. After their final separation, Elizabeth was no longer working regularly as an actress and did not return to Hollywood. Instead, she entered the world of American politics, where she met John Warner, a Republican politician from Virginia aiming for the U.S. Senate. They married on December 4, 1976, and Liz devoted herself fully to his campaign. At first, everything felt exciting, but once Warner won, life quickly grew cold. Washington, D.C. was not Hollywood. The rigid parties, dull social circles, and constant pretense drained her. Over time, she fell into depression and began drinking heavily and using medication to cope. The marriage deteriorated, and by 1981 it was essentially over, pending legal formalities. The divorce was finalized in November 1982. After that quiet dissolution, Elizabeth Taylor seemed to return to her familiar orbit, one of flashing cameras, charismatic men, and an ever-present sense of danger. She continued living as if her heart could never remain still. New relationships followed: the charming George Hamilton, the enigmatic Anthony Geary, and a series of engagements that stirred media frenzy. First Victor Luna, a captivating Mexican lawyer, then Dennis Stein, a wealthy New York businessman. Yet each romance stopped just short of marriage, as if fate deliberately kept Liz in a state of almost. Then came the unexpected. In 1988, while undergoing treatment for addiction at the Betty Ford Center, Elizabeth met Larry Fortensky, a modest construction worker more than 2 decades her junior. With no fame, no power, and no Hollywood glamour, Larry represented an entirely different world. Perhaps that very contrast drew Liz to him. Their love ignited quickly, and 3 years later, on October 6, 1991, they married at Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch. A lavish event quintessentially Elizabeth Taylor, dazzling, noisy, and impossible to ignore. The frenzy reached its peak when a daring paparazzo parachuted onto the property just to capture exclusive shots of the ceremony. Liz later sold the wedding photos to People magazine for $1 million. But instead of keeping the money, she donated the entire amount to the fight against AIDS, a cause she had championed tirelessly for years. That eighth marriage lasted 8 years, far longer than many had predicted, yet ultimately unable to withstand the pressures of reality. Liz's health continued to decline, while Larry struggled with his own psychological issues. They parted quietly, without scandal or bitterness, simply two people who had once loved each other but could no longer move forward together. Even so, the emotional bond between them never truly broke. When Larry suffered a serious accident in 1999 and fell into a coma, it was Liz who quietly paid all his medical bills. In the years that followed, they stayed in touch, still caring for one another, maintaining a connection that went beyond the label of former spouses. In 2010, Elizabeth sent Larry a heartfelt letter telling him he would always remain in her heart. Their final phone call took place in February 2011, when Larry joked that he believed she would outlive him. But fate had other plans. Just weeks later, Liz passed away, leaving him $825,000 in her will as one last gentle farewell. In her final years, Elizabeth also shared a deep friendship with actor Colin Farrell. It was not a romantic love, but a meeting of two seasoned souls, long late-night conversations about life, loneliness, and memory. As her health deteriorated, she required constant care, like a queen who had battled her own body for far too long. On March 23, 2011, Elizabeth Taylor took her final breath at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center at the age of 79. The curtain fell, but the legend did not disappear. She left the world as she had lived, fierce, alluring, complex, and irreplaceable, leaving behind a lifelong love affair with life itself, one that Hollywood will continue telling for generations to come.